Marcus Johnson was a 16-year-old boy with big dreams and an even bigger heart. He lived in a small, quiet neighborhood where everyone knew each other by name. His mother, Evelyn Johnson, worked tirelessly to give him the best life she could. She juggled multiple jobs, sometimes working late into the night, but still managed to find time for Marcus. Despite their modest lifestyle, Evelyn always reminded her son that success wasn't measured by how much money you had, but by how kind and determined you were. Marcus admired his mom deeply. To him, she was a superhero who could do anything. But what Marcus didn't fully realize yet was just how extraordinary Evelyn truly was. You see, Evelyn wasn't just any mom. She was Evelyn Carter Johnson, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. Years ago, she had built a billion-dollar tech company from scratch, revolutionizing the way people communicated online. Yet despite her immense wealth, Evelyn preferred to live simply. She drove an old sedan, wore clothes bought from regular stores, and avoided drawing attention to herself or her family. Only a handful of close friends and trusted colleagues knew about her fortune, and Marcus was kept mostly in the dark about it too. Evelyn believed that shielding Marcus from the privileges of wealth would help him grow into a grounded and humble person. Instead of giving him expensive gifts or sending him to elite private schools, she encouraged him to work hard, stay curious, and appreciate the little things in life. And Marcus? Well, he thrived under her guidance. He was bright, polite, and full of questions about the world around him. Whether it was tinkering with gadgets at home or reading books borrowed from the library, Marcus had a natural curiosity that made his mom proud. One sunny afternoon, Marcus's high school organized a field trip to a nearby luxury car dealership. The idea was to expose students to different industries and careers they might not have considered before. For many kids, this was just another boring outing, but for Marcus it felt like stepping into a whole new world. As the bus pulled up to the dealership, he pressed his face against the window, marveling at the rows of shiny cars parked outside. There were sleek sports cars, elegant sedans, and massive SUVs, all gleaming under the sunlight. When the group entered the showroom, Marcus couldn't believe his eyes. Every car inside looked like something out of a movie. Some had smooth curves and glossy finishes, while others boasted bold designs and roaring engines. The air smelled faintly of leather and polish, adding to the luxurious atmosphere. While his classmates wandered off in different directions, Marcus found himself drawn to a bright red Ferrari sitting proudly in the center of the room. It was the kind of car he'd only seen in magazines or on TV, and now here it was, right in front of him. He stood there for a moment, taking it all in. The car seemed almost alive, its reflection shimmering like fire. Tentatively, Marcus reached out to touch it, but stopped himself just in time. What if I accidentally scratch it, he thought, pulling his hand back. Still, he couldn't resist leaning closer to get a better look. That's when he noticed two salesmen standing nearby, chatting casually. They glanced at him briefly, before turning away, laughing about something Marcus couldn't hear. Curiosity got the better of him, so Marcus moved a little closer, pretending to examine another car nearby while eavesdropping on their conversation. One of the men, wearing a fancy suit and holding a clipboard, said, "You know, we should really focus on the high-profile clients today. These kids are probably just wasting our time." His colleague nodded in agreement. "Yeah, especially that one over there," he added, pointing directly at Marcus. "Look at him, just staring at the cars like he belongs here." Marcus froze. He felt his cheeks burn as embarrassment washed over him. Did they really think he didn't belong? Sure, he wasn't dressed in designer clothes or driving a fancy car, but that didn't mean he didn't deserve to be there. Before he could say anything, though, the first salesman approached him with a smirk. "Hey, kid," he said loudly enough for others to hear, "this isn't your kind of place. Maybe try looking at bikes or buses instead." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. He wanted to defend himself, to explain that he was just curious and hadn't done anything wrong. But before he could speak, another employee joined in, chiming, "Yeah, maybe you should stick to something more realistic." Their tone was mocking, dripping with judgment. Marcus clenched his fists, trying to hold back tears of frustration. Just then the dealership manager appeared, surveying the scene. When he spotted Marcus standing awkwardly near the Ferrari, he frowned. Without asking for an explanation or hearing Marcus's side of the story, the manager barked, "We don't want troublemakers here. Please leave immediately." Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. Feeling defeated and humiliated, he turned around and walked toward the exit, ignoring the snickers and whispers following him. As he stepped outside, the bright sunlight did nothing to lift his spirits. Marcus felt angry, not just at the people inside the dealership, but also at himself for letting them treat him that way. Why did they assume he didn't belong? Was it because of how he looked? Because he was black? Or because he didn't come from a wealthy background? Whatever the reason, it hurt. By the time Marcus got home that evening, he was still fuming. Evelyn greeted him at the door with a warm smile, but it quickly faded when she saw the look on his face. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, concern etched across her features. Marcus hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should tell her what happened. Finally, he decided to share everything: the trip to the dealership, the rude comments from the salesman, and the manager kicking him out without even listening. Evelyn listened quietly, her expression unreadable. Her hands rested gently on Marcus's shoulders as he spoke, offering silent support. When he finished, she pulled him into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," she whispered. Then, after a pause, she added, "But don't worry, Marcus. Tomorrow, we'll show them exactly who you are and why they were wrong to treat you that way." Though Marcus didn't understand what she meant, he felt a glimmer of hope. If anyone could turn things around, it was his mom. Little did he know, Evelyn already had a plan brewing in her mind, a plan that would leave the entire dealership speechless. The next morning, Evelyn woke up earlier than usual. She walked to the kitchen, brewed herself a cup of coffee, and sat by the window, lost in thought. The events of the previous evening played over and over in her mind like a broken record. Marcus's voice still echoed in her ears, his pain, confusion, and frustration clear as day. Evelyn knew that what happened at the dealership wasn't just an isolated incident. It was part of a much larger problem. Prejudice, stereotypes, and assumptions about people based on their appearance or background were all too common in society. But Evelyn also knew that sometimes life handed you moments to make a difference, and this was one of them. She sipped her coffee slowly, thinking carefully about how to handle the situation. Evelyn had always been a woman of action, but she wasn't impulsive. She believed in choosing her battles wisely and making sure every move she made served a purpose. This time, though, something inside her burned with urgency. It wasn't just about defending Marcus. It was about teaching those men, and anyone else who might have stood silently watching, a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. After finishing her coffee, Evelyn went to her bedroom and picked out an outfit, a crisp navy blue suit paired with a white blouse. She wanted to look professional yet commanding, someone who couldn't be ignored or dismissed easily. Once dressed, she called her assistant Clara, who handled most of Evelyn's personal and business affairs. "Clara," Evelyn said calmly into the phone, "I need the Phantom ready in 30 minutes, and please cancel my meetings for today. I'll be handling something important." Clara didn't ask questions. She had worked with Evelyn long enough to know when her boss was planning something significant. "Of course, Evelyn. Anything else?" Clara replied. "No, that will be all," Evelyn said before hanging up. As she grabbed her bag and headed outside, she felt a sense of calm determination wash over her. Today she would remind the world exactly who she was, and more importantly, who her son was. By the time Evelyn stepped outside, her Rolls-Royce Phantom was already waiting for her. The car gleamed under the morning sun, its polished black exterior reflecting the sky above. Her driver, James, opened the door for her with a respectful nod. Evelyn slid into the plush leather seat, exhaling deeply as the car door closed behind her. For a moment she allowed herself to sit quietly, letting the weight of what she was about to do settle in. Then, turning to James, she said firmly, Take me to the dealership we visited yesterday." Meanwhile, Marcus started his day like any other. He woke up groggy, ate breakfast, and got ready for school. His mood hadn't improved much since the previous evening, but he tried to push the incident out of his mind. Still, whispers of the encounter lingered in his thoughts, making him feel uneasy. At school, things seemed normal, at first. Classmates chatted noisily during breaks, teachers gave lectures, and the hallways buzzed with activity. But then, strange rumors began circulating around campus. Someone claimed to have seen a mysterious black Rolls-Royce parked near the luxury car dealership early that morning. Others whispered that the car belonged to none other than Evelyn Carter Johnson, the billionaire tech mogul. Word spread quickly among students, fueled by excitement and speculation. By lunchtime, the entire school was buzzing with talk of what might happen next. Some kids joked that maybe Evelyn would buy the whole dealership out of anger. Others wondered if Marcus had told his mom about the incident and if she was coming to confront the staff. Marcus heard snippets of these conversations throughout the day, but didn't pay much attention to them. He assumed the rumors were exaggerated or completely made up. After all, his mom rarely flaunted her wealth or status. Why would she suddenly show up at the dealership now? Besides, Marcus didn't want to get his hopes up. If there was one thing he'd learned growing up, it was not to expect grand gestures or dramatic rescues. Life wasn't like the movies. It was messy, unpredictable, and often unfair. Back at the dealership, the staff was busy preparing for another day of work. Salesmen straightened ties, polished cars, and greeted customers with practiced smiles. Everything seemed ordinary, until a low rumble filled the air. Heads turned toward the entrance as a sleek black Rolls-Royce glided through the glass doors. The engine purred softly, announcing its arrival without needing to shout. Everyone froze, staring wide-eyed as the car came to a stop in the middle of the showroom. James stepped out first, opening the rear passenger door with precision. A moment later, Evelyn emerged, looking every bit the powerful woman she was. Dressed impeccably in her navy blue suit, she exuded confidence and authority. Her sunglasses shielded her eyes, adding an air of mystery to her presence. As she walked toward the reception desk, the room fell silent. Even the customers stopped browsing, captivated by the sight of such undeniable elegance and poise. The manager, whose name tag read Greg, was the first to snap out of the trance. Recognizing the iconic Rolls-Royce emblem, he hurried forward, with a nervous grin plastered across his face. "Welcome, ma'am," he exclaimed, trying to sound cheerful despite the tension in his voice. "How may we assist you today?" Evelyn didn't respond immediately. Instead, she removed her sunglasses, revealing sharp, piercing eyes that seemed to see right through Greg. Her gaze swept across the room, taking in the rows of shiny cars, the stunned employees, and the curious customers. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm but firm. "I'm here because of something that happened yesterday," she began, her voice carrying just enough weight to command everyone's attention. "A young man, my son, was unfairly treated in this very showroom. I've come to address that." Greg's smile faltered. He glanced around anxiously, unsure of how to respond. "Ma'am, I assure you, we treat all our customers with respect," he stammered, sweat beginning to form on his forehead. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, unimpressed by his attempt to dodge responsibility. "Is that so?" she asked coolly. "Then perhaps you'd like to explain why my son was kicked out of here simply for admiring a car?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and unavoidable. Greg opened his mouth to reply but found himself at a loss for words. Other employees exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they were witnessing something far bigger than they had anticipated. Evelyn continued, her voice steady and unwavering. "Let me make something clear," she said, addressing not just Greg, but the entire room. "Discrimination has no place in any business, not here, not anywhere. Judging someone based on their appearance or assuming they don't belong is not only wrong but harmful. It damages trust, reputation, and ultimately your bottom line." Her words struck a chord with everyone present. Customers nodded in agreement, while employees shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. Evelyn wasn't yelling or threatening, legal action. Instead, she spoke with quiet conviction, letting the truth speak for itself. She recounted Marcus's experience, the rude comments from the salesman, the lack of opportunity to defend himself, and the manager's hasty decision to kick him out. Each detail painted a picture of injustice that left no room for denial. By the time Evelyn finished speaking, Greg looked pale and shaken. "Ma'am, I had no idea," he muttered, his voice trembling. "Please accept my sincerest apologies. We'll take immediate steps to ensure this never happens again." Evelyn studied him for a moment, searching for sincerity in his expression. Finally, she nodded. "See that you do," she said simply. Then, reaching into her bag, she pulled out a business card and handed it to him. "If you need guidance on implementing proper training for your staff, feel free to reach out." With that, Evelyn turned and walked back to her car, leaving the dealership in stunned silence. James held the door open for her, and as she settled into the seat, she allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Justice had been served, not through vengeance but through education and accountability. The ride home was peaceful, the morning sun casting golden rays through the windows. Evelyn knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but moments like this reminded her why she fought for fairness and equality. Little did she know, however, that Marcus was about to learn a valuable lesson of his own, one that would shape the way he viewed himself and the world around him. Evelyn's arrival at the dealership had sent shockwaves through the entire building, leaving everyone in a state of stunned disbelief. Greg, the manager, was visibly shaken as he scrambled to process what had just happened. His face flushed, red with embarrassment, and his hands trembled slightly as he clutched Evelyn's business card like it might burn him if he held it too tightly. The rest of the staff stood frozen, unsure whether to continue working or wait for further instructions. Customers lingered awkwardly, whispering among themselves about the dramatic scene they had just witnessed. Meanwhile, Evelyn stepped back, into her Rolls-Royce, calm and composed, as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. She didn't need to raise her voice or threaten legal action to make her point. Her presence alone had been enough to command respect and demand accountability. As James closed the door behind her, Evelyn leaned back against the plush leather seat, allowing herself a moment of quiet reflection. Her mind replayed the events of the morning, the manager's nervous stammering, the wide-eyed stares from employees, and the palpable tension that filled the air when she spoke. It wasn't anger that drove her. It was a deep desire to teach these people a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. As the car pulled away from the dealership, Evelyn glanced out the window, watching the shiny rows of luxury vehicles fade into the distance. She thought about Marcus and how this experience must have affected him. Humiliation, especially at such a young age, could leave lasting scars if not addressed properly. But Evelyn also knew that moments like this could become turning points, if handled with care. She hoped today's visit would serve as a reminder to Marcus that he deserved respect, no matter where he went or who he encountered. Back at school, Marcus remained blissfully unaware of his mother's bold intervention. Rumors continued to swirl around campus, growing wilder with each retelling. Some students claimed Evelyn had bought the entire dealership in a fit of rage. Others speculated that she'd fired everyone on the spot. While most of these stories were exaggerated, there was an undeniable buzz of excitement in the air. Marcus tried to ignore the chatter, focusing instead on his classes and assignments. Still, curiosity gnawed at him. Why were people talking so much about his mom? And why did everyone seem convinced she'd gone to the dealership? During lunch, Marcus found himself sitting alone at a table near the corner of the cafeteria. He picked at his food absent-mindedly, lost in thought. A group of classmates approached him hesitantly, their faces lighting up with intrigue. "Hey, Marcus," one of them said cautiously. "Is it true your mom showed up at the dealership today?" Marcus blinked, caught off guard by the question. "What are you talking about?" he replied, genuinely confused. The student grinned, clearly thrilled to share the latest gossip. "People are saying your mom rolled up in a Rolls-Royce and gave the staff a piece of her mind. Is that real?" Marcus frowned, shaking his head. "I don't know anything about that," he said. Firmly, though, doubt began creeping into his mind. Could his mom really have done something like that? It seemed impossible. She was always so low-key, so private. But then again, Marcus didn't know everything about her. Maybe there was more to his mom than he realized. By the end of the school, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something big was happening, and he was somehow at the center of it. When the final bell rang, he hurried home, eager to find answers. As he turned the key in the lock and stepped inside, he immediately noticed Evelyn sitting at the dining table, sipping tea and scrolling through her phone. She looked up as he entered, her expression softening into a warm smile. "Hey, sweetheart," she greeted him. "How was your day?" Marcus hesitated, unsure how to broach the subject. Finally, he blurted out, "Mom, did you go to the dealership today?" Evelyn set her phone down and studied him carefully. For a moment, she didn't say anything, letting the silence stretch between them. Then, with a small nod, she confirmed, "Yes, I did." Marcus stared at her, stunned. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn gestured for him to sit down, and he obeyed, sinking into the chair across from her. Taking a deep breath, she explained everything. The early morning drive, the confrontation with the manager, and the message she hoped to send. "I wanted them to understand that treating someone unfairly because of how they look or where they come from is unacceptable," she said gently. "And I wanted you to know that you deserve respect, Marcus. Always." Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes as he listened. He had spent the past 24 hours replaying the incident in his mind, reliving the humiliation and frustration. But now, hearing his mom talk about standing up for him, something shifted inside him. It wasn't just about revenge or proving a point, it was about dignity, fairness, and teaching others to see beyond surface-level judgments. "Thank you, Mom," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Evelyn reached across the table and took his hand in hers. "You're welcome, sweetheart. Remember, you're stronger than any insult or act of cruelty. Don't let anyone make you feel small." Over the next few days, news of Evelyn's visit spread far beyond the walls of the dealership. Local media outlets caught wind of the story, publishing articles and interviews about the billionaire tech mogul who had called out discrimination in her community. Social media exploded with reactions, ranging from admiration for Evelyn's poise and grace to outrage over the treatment Marcus had received. Many praised her for using her influence to highlight important issues, while others criticized the dealership for its lack of professionalism. The dealership itself underwent significant changes in response to the incident. Greg, the manager, issued a public apology, acknowledging the mistake and promising to implement sensitivity training for all employees. Flyers were posted around the showroom reminding staff to treat every customer with equal respect and courtesy. Even the salesman who had mocked Marcus expressed regret, though their sincerity was met with skepticism by some. For Marcus, life slowly returned to normal, or at least as normal as it could be after such a whirlwind of events. At school, he became somewhat of a local celebrity, with classmates asking endless questions about his mom and the infamous Rolls-Royce. Teachers used the incident as a teaching moment, sparking discussions about prejudice, empathy, and the importance of treating others fairly. Marcus initially felt uncomfortable being the center of attention, but over time he grew more confident sharing his perspective. One afternoon during a school assembly, Marcus was invited to speak about his experience. Standing on stage, microphone in hand, he felt a mix of nerves and determination. Looking out at the sea of faces before him, he took a deep breath and began. "A few weeks ago, I walked into a car dealership feeling curious and excited. By the time I left, I felt humiliated and angry. What happened to me wasn't fair, but it taught me something important, that our actions matter. How we treat people says a lot about who we are. My mom showed me that standing up for yourself doesn't mean fighting back. It means demanding respect and holding others accountable." The audience erupted into applause, cheering loudly as Marcus stepped off the stage. For the first time in a long time, he felt proud, not because of what his mom had done, but because he had found the courage to share his story. That night, as he lay in bed reflecting on everything that had happened, Marcus realized that adversity could be a powerful teacher. It had shown him the value of resilience, the strength of his family, and the importance of using your voice to create change. Evelyn, meanwhile, continued living her life with purpose and humility. Though she had wealth and influence, she never sought recognition or fame. Instead, she focused on making a difference, whether by mentoring young entrepreneurs, supporting charitable causes, or simply being there for her son. To Marcus, she wasn't just a billionaire or a tech genius. She was his mom, the person who had taught him to believe in himself and stand tall in the face of injustice. And so, life moved forward. The Rolls-Royce incident became a chapter in their lives, a reminder of both the challenges they faced and the victories they achieved together. Whenever Marcus passed by the dealership, he couldn't help but smile, knowing that sometimes justice arrived in the form of a gleaming black phantom. The following weeks brought a whirlwind of changes for Marcus and Evelyn, as well as for the dealership where everything had unfolded. The incident wasn't just a private matter anymore. It had spilled into the public eye, sparking conversations that reached far beyond their small town. Local newspapers picked up the story, running headlines like "Billionaire Mom Confronts Dealership Over Son's Treatment" and "Luxury Car Showroom Learns Lesson in Respect." Social media buzzed, with reactions, opinions, and debates about discrimination, privilege, and accountability. For Marcus, this newfound attention was both overwhelming and enlightening. At school, he became an accidental celebrity. Students who barely noticed him before suddenly wanted to sit next to him at lunch or chat with him in the hallways. Some asked questions about his mom, how rich she really was, what kind of car she owned, and whether they could get autographs or selfies. Others were curious about his experience at the dealership, asking if he felt scared, angry, or embarrassed. During the confrontation, Marcus handled these interactions with grace, though inside he sometimes felt uncomfortable being put on display. He didn't want people to see him as someone special just because of his mom's wealth or influence. To him, he was still the same Marcus, a regular kid trying to navigate high school while figuring out who he was. Teachers also took notice of the situation, using it as a teaching moment in classrooms across the school. In history class, discussions turned to civil rights movements and how marginalized groups fought for equality throughout history. In English, students analyzed essays and poems about overcoming prejudice and standing up against injustice. Even in science, one teacher used the analogy of ecosystems to explain how treating individuals unfairly could disrupt harmony within communities. These lessons resonated deeply with Marcus, helping him process what had happened and understand its broader implications. Evelyn, too, found herself navigating uncharted territory. While she had always avoided drawing attention to her wealth, the dealership incident thrust her into the spotlight. Reporters called her office seeking interviews, bloggers wrote opinion pieces praising her actions, and strangers stopped her on the street to thank her for speaking out. At first, Evelyn resisted engaging further, wanting the focus to remain on the message rather than her personal life. But eventually, she agreed to give a brief statement to a trusted journalist, emphasizing the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect. "I'm not here to shame anyone," she said. During the interview, "I'm here to remind us all that kindness costs nothing, but assumptions can cost everything. My son deserved better, and so does every person who walks through those doors." Her words struck a chord with readers, many of whom shared their own stories of facing discrimination based on race, class, or appearance. The article went viral, prompting even more dialogue about systemic biases and how they manifest in everyday situations. Evelyn received countless messages from people thanking her for shining a light on these issues. One letter, written by a young girl named Maya, stood out to her. "Dear Ms. Johnson," it read, "your bravery gives me hope. I've been teased for wearing hand-me-down clothes, but your story reminds me that I deserve respect no matter what I wear or where I come from. Thank you." Evelyn kept the note tucked in her desk drawer, pulling it out whenever she needed a reminder of why she'd spoken up in the first place. She knew that change wouldn't happen overnight, but every conversation mattered. Every voice added to the chorus demanding fairness and equality. Back at the dealership, things weren't quite the same either. Greg, the manager, worked tirelessly to repair the damage done to the business's reputation. True to his word, he implemented sensitivity training sessions for all employees, bringing in experts to discuss unconscious bias, cultural competence, and customer service best practices. Posters with motivational quotes about inclusivity hung on the walls, and new policies ensured that every visitor would be treated with courtesy, regardless of their background. Employees participated reluctantly at first, grumbling under their breath about political correctness. But over time, attitudes began to shift. One salesman, Ryan, stood out as particularly transformed by the experience. He had been one of the men who mocked Marcus during his visit, making snide comments about bikes and buses. After attending multiple training sessions and hearing first-hand accounts from colleagues who had faced discrimination themselves, Ryan started seeing things differently. He realized how harmful his words must have been, not just to Marcus but to anyone else who might have overheard them. Determined to make amends, Ryan approached Greg with an idea: host a community outreach event at the dealership to rebuild trust and foster connections with local residents. Greg loved the suggestion and gave Ryan full support to organize the Meow event. They partnered with nearby schools, inviting students to tour the facility, learn about automotive technology, and explore potential career paths in the industry. Families were welcomed with open arms, offered refreshments, and encouraged to ask questions about the cars on display. On the day of the event, Marcus attended alongside his classmates, curious to see how the dealership had changed since his last visit. Walking through the showroom, Marcus noticed subtle differences. Gone were the judgmental stares and dismissive attitudes. Instead, staff greeted visitors warmly, answering questions patiently and offering genuine smiles. When Ryan spotted Marcus, he walked over, extending his hand. "Hey, Marcus," he said sincerely. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened before. It was wrong, and I regret it. I hope you'll give us another chance." Marcus hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond. Then, remembering his mom's advice about forgiveness and moving forward, he shook Ryan's hand firmly. "Thanks for saying that," he replied. "I appreciate it." Though their interaction was brief, it marked a turning point, not just for Marcus, but for Ryan as well. Both walked away feeling lighter, ready to let go of past mistakes and focus on building a better future. As days turned into weeks, life gradually returned to normal, or at least as normal as it could be after such a transformative experience. Marcus continued excelling in school, finding joy in learning and exploring new interests. He joined the robotics club, mentored younger students, and volunteered at a local shelter, inspired by his mom's commitment to giving back. Evelyn, meanwhile, remained a pillar of strength and wisdom, guiding Marcus through challenges while quietly working behind the scenes to support causes close to her heart. Though the Rolls-Royce incident faded from the headlines, its impact lingered. It served as a powerful reminder that even seemingly small acts of courage could spark meaningful change. For Marcus, it reinforced the importance of resilience and self-worth. For Evelyn, it reaffirmed her belief in using privilege responsibly to uplift others. And for the dealership and perhaps the wider community, it highlighted the need for empathy, understanding, and accountability in creating spaces where everyone feels valued. One evening, as mother and son sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Evelyn turned to Marcus with a thoughtful smile. "You know," she said softly, "life will throw challenges your way, but each one is an opportunity to grow stronger and wiser. Don't ever let anyone dim your light, sweetheart. You're capable of amazing things." Marcus nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude for the woman sitting beside him. Together they had weathered a storm and emerged stronger than ever. The weeks following the dealership incident brought a wave of transformation, not just for Marcus and Evelyn, but for the entire community. The story had become more than just a local headline. It had sparked conversations about fairness, respect, and the hidden biases that shape how people treat one another. For Marcus, this newfound attention was both inspiring and challenging. He found himself navigating a world where strangers viewed him differently, not because of who he was, but because of what his mom had done. It was a strange feeling, being recognized not for his own achievements but for someone else's actions. At school, Marcus became a symbol of resilience. Teachers often praised him during class discussions, holding him up as an example of courage in the face of adversity. Some students looked at him with admiration, while others seemed unsure how to act around him. A few even joked about him becoming famous, teasing him good-naturedly about his billionaire mom. At first, Marcus felt uneasy about all the attention. He didn't want to be treated differently or placed on a pedestal. But over time, he realized that he had an opportunity to use his voice and share his experience to help others. One afternoon, Marcus's principal approached him after school. "Marcus," she said warmly, "we're planning a special assembly next week to talk about overcoming challenges and standing up against injustice. Would you be willing to speak?" Marcus hesitated. Public speaking wasn't exactly his strong suit. He preferred staying behind the scenes, quietly observing and learning. But something inside him stirred. He thought about his mom's calm determination when she confronted the dealership staff. He remembered the way her words carried weight without needing to shout. Maybe, he thought, this was his chance to follow in her footsteps. After some encouragement from Evelyn, Marcus agreed to participate. The night before the assembly, he sat at the kitchen table, drafting notes for his speech. His mom offered gentle advice, reminding him to speak from the heart. "Don't worry about sounding perfect," she told him. "Just tell your truth. People will connect with honesty more than anything else." With that in mind, Marcus wrote about his initial excitement visiting the dealership, the humiliation of being kicked out, and the lessons he learned afterward. He ended his draft with a simple yet powerful message. Respect isn't something you earn based on what you wear or how much money you have. It's something everyone deserves, no matter who they are. The day of the assembly arrived, and Marcus felt a mix of nerves and determination as he stepped onto the stage. The auditorium buzzed with chatter, filled with students, teachers, and even a few parents who had come to listen. When the principal introduced him, the room fell silent. Taking a deep breath, Marcus adjusted the microphone and began to speak. His voice trembled slightly at first, but as he continued, he grew more confident. He shared his story openly, admitting how hurt he had been by the dealership staff's behavior, and how proud he was of his mom for standing up for him. By the time he finished, the audience erupted into applause, cheering loudly as Marcus stepped off the stage. That moment marked a turning point for Marcus. Speaking publicly about his experience gave him a sense of empowerment he hadn't felt before. For so long, he had let the embarrassment of the dealership incident weigh him down. Now, he saw it as a catalyst for growth, a reminder that setbacks could lead to strength if handled with grace and purpose. Inspired by the positive response, Marcus decided to get more involved in advocacy work. He joined a student-led group focused on promoting inclusivity and equality within the school. Together, they organized workshops, created posters celebrating diversity, and encouraged open dialogue about prejudice and privilege. Meanwhile, Evelyn continued using her platform to drive meaningful change. She partnered with local organizations to fund educational programs aimed at teaching young people about empathy and leadership. One initiative she launched, called Project Respect, provided resources for schools and businesses to implement anti-discrimination training. Through these efforts, Evelyn hoped to create environments where everyone felt valued and heard. Though she avoided seeking recognition for herself, her contributions earned widespread appreciation and inspired countless individuals to take action in their own communities. Back at the dealership, the changes initiated by Greg and Ryan took root. The community outreach event proved to be a huge success, drawing families from across town and fostering connections that extended beyond the showroom floor. Kids marveled at the shiny cars, asking endless questions about engines, designs, and technology. Parents chatted with staff members, sharing stories and building rapport. Even skeptical employees warmed up to the idea of treating every visitor with kindness and professionalism, realizing that a little effort went a long way in creating positive experiences. Ryan, in particular, embraced his role as a champion for change. He volunteered to lead future outreach events and mentored newer salespeople on the importance of inclusive customer service. During one meeting, he shared a story about a recent interaction with a young boy who reminded him of Marcus. "This kid came in with his dad looking nervous like he didn't belong here," Ryan recounted. "But instead of brushing him off, I bent down and showed him how the car worked. His eyes lit up and he left smiling. That's when I realized, we're not just selling cars, we're building relationships. And every person who walks through those doors deserves our best." As months passed, the dealership transformed into a model of inclusivity and respect. Local leaders praised its efforts, and customers began recommending it to friends and family. For Greg, the manager, the journey was humbling yet rewarding. He knew there was still work to be done, but he took pride in seeing his team grow and evolve. In many ways, the incident with Marcus and Evelyn had been a wake-up call, a reminder that businesses thrive not just on profits, but on the values they uphold. For Evelyn and Marcus, life settled into a rhythm of purpose and connection. They spent weekends volunteering at shelters, tutoring kids in STEM subjects, and attending community events. Their bond deepened as they worked side by side, united by a shared mission to make the world a better place. Evelyn often reminded Marcus that wealth and influence were tools, not badges of superiority. True success, she would say, isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by the lives you touch along the way. Though the Rolls-Royce incident remained a pivotal chapter in their lives, it wasn't the end of their story. Instead, it was a beginning, a starting point for greater adventures, deeper lessons, and lasting impact. As Marcus looked ahead to the future, he felt a renewed sense of hope and possibility. He knew that challenges would come, but he also knew he had the strength to face them, with his mom by his side and the lessons they'd learned together guiding their path. And so, life moved forward, shaped by moments of courage, compassion, and change. Whether walking through the halls of his school, volunteering in the community, or simply sitting on the porch with his mom, Marcus carried one truth close to his heart. Every person deserves respect, and sometimes justice arrives in unexpected ways, leaving ripples of transformation in its wake. As the months rolled on, the impact of Evelyn and Marcus's actions rippled far beyond their small town. What had started as a single incident at a car dealership blossomed into a movement that inspired people from all walks of life. The story of how a billionaire mom confronted prejudice on behalf of her son became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in moments of injustice, there is always room for accountability, growth, and change. For Marcus, the experience transformed him in ways he never expected. He went from being an ordinary teenager navigating high school to someone who understood the power of his voice. After speaking at the school assembly, he discovered a newfound confidence in sharing his thoughts and experiences. His peers began looking to him not just as a classmate but as a leader, someone who could articulate difficult truths with clarity and compassion. Teachers encouraged him to take on more responsibilities, such as mentoring younger students or leading discussions about diversity and inclusion. One day, during a career fair at school, Marcus met a representative from a local nonprofit organization focused on empowering underprivileged youth. The representative listened intently as Marcus shared his story and expressed interest in helping others overcome similar challenges. Impressed by his maturity and passion, the representative invited Marcus to intern with their team over the summer. At first, Marcus hesitated. He wasn't sure if he was ready for such a big responsibility. But Evelyn reassured him. "You've already shown so much courage," she said. "Why stop now?" That summer, Marcus threw himself into the internship, learning firsthand about the systemic barriers faced by marginalized communities. He worked alongside mentors who taught him how to advocate for policy changes, organize community events, and amplify voices often overlooked by society. Through this work, Marcus realized that his personal struggle at the dealership was part of a much larger narrative, one that required collective effort to address. By the end of the summer, he had helped plan a citywide summit aimed at fostering dialogue between businesses, educators, and residents, about creating equitable opportunities for everyone. Evelyn watched her son grow with pride, knowing that she had played a role in shaping his perspective. Yet she also recognized that Marcus's journey was uniquely his own. She continued supporting him quietly, stepping back when necessary to let him carve out his path. Her own efforts remained steadfast as well. Project Respect expanded beyond schools and dealerships, reaching corporations and government agencies eager to adopt its principles. Evelyn traveled across the country, delivering keynote speeches and hosting workshops that emphasized the importance of treating people with dignity, regardless of their background. Her message resonated deeply with audiences, many of whom approached her after events to share their gratitude. One woman, a single mother raising 2 daughters, hugged Evelyn tightly and whispered, "Your story gives me strength to keep fighting for my girls." Another man, a former employee who had faced discrimination at his workplace, thanked her for validating his experiences and inspiring him to speak up. These encounters reminded Evelyn why she had chosen to step into the spotlight, to remind others that no one should have to endure unfair treatment in silence. Back home, Evelyn and Marcus made it a point to spend quality time together, grounding themselves amidst the whirlwind of attention and activity. They took long walks through the neighborhood, cooked meals side by side, and spent evenings watching movies under blankets. These simple moments served as anchors, reminding them of what truly mattered: family, love, and the quiet joy of being present with each other. The dealership, too, continued evolving under Greg and Ryan's leadership. What had once been a place associated with arrogance and exclusion became a beacon of inclusivity and kindness. Families returned again and again, not just because of the cars, but because of the genuine warmth they felt from the staff. Employees embraced the new culture, finding fulfillment in making customers feel valued. Even competitors took notice, adopting similar practices in their own showrooms. Ryan, in particular, thrived in his new role as an advocate for inclusivity. He became a mentor to coworkers, teaching them how to approach interactions with empathy and understanding. During one training session, he shared a story about a customer who arrived wearing worn-out shoes and faded jeans. Instead of dismissing the man as unlikely to buy anything, Ryan greeted him warmly and offered assistance. To everyone's surprise, the man ended up purchasing a luxury SUV and later wrote a heartfelt letter thanking the dealership for treating him like royalty. "It's not about appearances," Ryan told his colleagues. "It's about seeing the person behind the clothes." By the time Marcus entered his senior year of high school, he had become a respected figure both inside and outside his community. His advocacy work earned him recognition, including a scholarship to a prestigious university where he planned to study social justice and public policy. On the night he received the acceptance letter, Evelyn wrapped him in a tight hug, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you, Marcus," she said softly. "You've grown into such an incredible young man." Marcus smiled, feeling a mix of excitement and gratitude. He knew that none of this would have been possible without the lessons he'd learned along the way: the pain of being judged unfairly, the courage his mom had shown in standing up for him, and the countless individuals who had supported him since. As he prepared for the next chapter of his life, he carried those lessons with him, determined to use his education and experiences to create lasting change. Before leaving for college, Marcus visited the dealership one last time. Walking through the showroom, he marveled at how different it felt compared to that fateful day years ago. Staff members greeted him warmly, remembering him fondly as the boy whose story had sparked a revolution within their walls. Greg shook his hand firmly, congratulating him on his achievements and wishing him success in the future. Ryan pulled him aside, his eyes shining with emotion. "Thank you, Marcus," he said sincerely. "You changed us for the better." As Marcus stood there, surrounded by people who had once dismissed him, he felt a profound sense of closure. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be redeemed. Every insult, every moment of humiliation had led him to this point, a place where he could look back and see not just pain, but progress. When Marcus finally drove away from the dealership, he glanced in the rearview mirror one last time. Gleaming rows of cars faded into the distance, replaced by the open road ahead. Beside him sat Evelyn, humming softly as she adjusted the radio. For a moment neither of them spoke, content to simply enjoy the quiet companionship they shared. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Marcus thought about the journey they'd taken together and the infinite possibilities waiting just beyond the horizon. Life, he realized, wasn't about avoiding storms. It was about learning to dance in the rain. With his mom by his side and the lessons of resilience etched into his heart, Marcus knew he was ready for whatever came next. Justice, respect, and transformation weren't destinations. They were journeys. And Marcus and Evelyn were committed to walking that path, one step at a time.